I'm Tig, this is week 19 of me documenting my progress as a musician and guitarist. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a realization I had this week about how I neglect the final 20% of any project. I'm going to share with you some of the most complex drum programming I have done on some of the music that I'm going to be putting out very soon, and also give you an update on how much quicker I've gotten by practicing the very same picking routine for 15 minutes every single day, up from last week. So let's kick things off with the picking progress update, as I've done that consistently for about 3 weeks now in these videos. So if you've been watching the last ones, you'll have seen the progress so far. The picking routine is broken into 4 sections. I'm going to show you each section first from last week, and then quickly from this week so you can see the difference. Let's have a look. So all in all, things are getting quicker, as you would expect, right? And I shared last week how I've gotten this picking routine down, relatively speaking, to a point where, you know, it doesn't sound slow, I don't think. Subjective. But I suppose all I can say is that for my own standards, it's not slow now. It's a decent speed. And it's not perfect. You can still hear there are some errors here and there, but it's what I would deem as good enough and usually move on to the next thing. And at this point, I would normally stop practicing a routine like this and start a new one. But last week, I caught myself doing this and thought, like, this is what I always do, where I really want to just take it a bit more extreme, just go the extra mile with it this time, and just see how much closer I can get it to perfect. In this case, of this picking routine, it would be things like making sure where I'm skipping between the strings, it's very fluid, and there's no sound of me hitting the other strings in the process. Or just making sure I can take the other things from quite quick to lightning quick, to a point where I haven't really been able to play that fast before, which is the aim of me doing this anyway, is to get much faster. So why stop at just, this is okay fast, let me get to really, really, really fast. And I shared last week how I've realized that this is a pattern in my guitar playing. I will get about 80% of the way there with something and then move on to the next thing. And that's obviously taken me so far, but I want to take it further. I want to really master these things and see how that approach changes my progress over the next however long. Now, today, I have been programming some drums for some of the songs I'm going to release very soon, which you'll know about if you've been watching, and taking some of the last few steps before I send them off for production. And I realized that I'd done the very same thing of kind of getting about 80% of the way there and almost discarding or underestimating the value of that final 20%. And what I mean by that is when I'd left the UK, I'd recorded all my guitar parts and most of the things were there, and I had to listen through, pick some guitar parts after. And in the week since, I've had to do some listen backs and choosing the right takes and things like that. But in my head, it was like, okay, I've done the recording, that's pretty much done. Just a couple of bits and pieces, then I can send it off. Today, among some other days, I realized that actually that last little bit of work I have to do before sending off that I thought was like, it's nothing. It's basically done. It's actually quite a lot of work. And I realized this in the track I'm about to show you where I program some drums. You'll see that I do quite a lot actually. And this was hours of work. I was nowhere near just having this sent off for production or having the drums ready before this session, which I'm about to show you in a moment. And I realized it's the same thing showing up. It's like I got about 80% of the way there. And then it's not that I'm not doing the final 20%. In this case, I have to do it because I have to have drums ready to send them off. But I just didn't think it would take as long, or took my foot off the pedal, so to speak, at about 80%, and just thought, the last bit I'll just do, it won't take long, it's no big deal. When actually it's a bigger deal than I planned for. The more I thought about this, the more I realized, actually, maybe this shows up everywhere in my life. For example, whenever I'm packing or getting ready to go somewhere, I always do most of the packing, think I've got loads of time, but then the final 20% of just like putting the final few bits in the bag, I just think, oh, that's nothing. That'll just take a couple of minutes. I'm basically done. And it turns out it actually takes like another 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then I often end up running late or cutting it really fine. And then my mind just started looking for other ways that this shows up. And there's actually quite a lot of ways. I'm very aware of the Pareto principle. We use it in business, the 80-20 rule, where basically 20% of what you do creates 80% of the results. And I think in this case, in these cases, that final 20% would create 80% of the result, in the sense that if I just did this same picking routine a little bit longer rather than stopping, getting bored, moving on to the next thing, I would create a disproportionately greater amount of progress. It's like I could get 80% faster just from doing the same things for 20% longer after doing them for a few weeks, if that makes sense. Or in the case of programming the drums, the extra 20% to finish is actually the thing that's going to make the difference between getting the project done or not. So you could say that final 20% really creates like 80% of the results, really getting a finished project. Maybe I'm just going off on one here. I don't know. You can let me know what you think. But I found this a really interesting observation that I'm definitely sitting on and thinking more about how this plays into, well, many things, but particularly how this plays into my development in guitar and my development in music in general, and in this case, songwriting. Which brings me to showing you those drums that I've been talking about for the last few minutes. So before today, I went from this second verse section straight into this chorus. And there are no drums, right? So we need to do something about that. Many hours later, I managed to program these very complex, very heavy drum fills in there. To really buff it out and give this section the attack that I wanted. I didn't even mark this down as something I had to do or factor in any time to get this done, and yet it ended up being almost a full day doing this. And in doing this, I realized that this transition between these sections, it comes a bit abruptly, and actually I want to add in a whole extra section. So now we added this kind of bridge, things go quiet. But then there's this big build-up leading up to the chorus, which you can see me programming the drums in for now. So all in all, I added some drums to a section that really needed them, but then I ended up adding a whole new section that makes the build-up between a regular verse and this big pounding climatic chorus a little bit more of a smooth transition. And in that, I did a whole lot of drums in the progress. And of course, had many realizations. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're curious at all about the ups and downs and what things look like on a weekly basis of someone who is very determined to really get to their full potential as a musician and guitarist, then hit subscribe. I'm sure you'll enjoy these videos. I'll see you on the next one.